We continue in prayer. Holy Creator God, we gather to begin this first session of the 16th Legislative Assembly, thankful for the natural beauty of this territory and attentive to the concerns of the people in our communities. We thank you, God, for the privileges and responsibilities of political freedom in our country. We ask that your Spirit be present as this session attends to the work set before it. Help each member to be ready to speak their truth wisely and to listen to one another with discernment and respect, that decisions made here will truly honour the very best intentions for the lands and waters and all the peoples of the Northwest Territories. We pray in the name of Jesus, who teaches us justice and calls us towards healing and peace. Amen.
Members, ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. It is my duty at this time to inform the House that the Commissioner of the Northwest Territories is not prepared to deliver an opening address until such time as you have appointed a Speaker. Now open the floor to motions for the appointment of a Speaker. Mr. Lafferty.
Mr. Chair, I move, second by Honourable Member for Nanakput, that Honourable Paul DeLaurie of the Electoral District of Hay River North do take the chair of this House as Speaker. Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Lafferty. Are there any additional motions for the appointment of a Speaker of the House? Seeing none, I would now request the mover and the seconder of the motion to escort the Speaker to the chair. Speaker, are you willing to be escorted to the chair?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chairman. feels familiar. I wish to begin by welcoming everyone to the chamber today. Honorable colleagues, please accept my sincere appreciation for the trust that you have placed in me by choosing me to serve a second term as your Speaker. I would like to especially thank Mr. Lafferty for the nomination. I wish to assure each and every one of you that I will continue to fulfill the duties of the Speaker to the very best of my ability. Both the privileges enjoyed by the House collectively and those of individual members. I also look forward to continuing to represent the institution of the Legislative Assembly. I am especially proud of our people and our accomplishments, and I thank you for the opportunity to continue to promote this great territory. I could make note here of the large shoes that I have to fill, or comment on the exceptional wisdom and guidance provided by your last Speaker. But seriously, members, my goals for this Assembly remain unchanged. My first obligation is to continue to preside over this House in a manner which ensures that the rights and privileges of members will be upheld and to maintain order and a level of decorum that will allow each and every one of you to carry out your duties to the best of your abilities. The most important and fundamental rights are the rights of freedom of speech in your debates and freedom from interference in carrying out your duties. I commit to uphold these rights as well as the rules and procedures which this House has adopted. As members know, promoting the independence of the legislative branch of government from the executive branch is also an issue of fundamental importance to me. I hope to build upon the strengths some of the legislative and process initiatives that were undertaken and agreed to by the 15th Assembly in this. On a more personal note, I would like to take this opportunity to thank my constituents in Hay River North for allowing me to continue to serve them in my capacity as MLA. It is a great privilege and an honor to represent them for the third term in this Assembly. I can assure them that the performance of my duties as Speaker in no way diminishes my efforts to serve each and every one of them to the very best of my ability. I would also like to thank my campaign manager, Bobby Hamilton, my official agent, Janet Marie Pfizer, and my entire campaign team, and especially my daughter, Monique, who designed and produced every pamphlet, every brochure, every newspaper ad, and met every deadline I put in. She is a wonderful person and did an amazing job. I would like to extend my congratulations to the Premier and Executive Council elected by the members and wish you well as you undertake your new responsibilities. However, I want to serve notice to all members of the Executive Council right here and right now that you can expect a call from me shortly after your swearing in. While I am not able to ask questions on the floor of the House, as Speaker, you will be seeing me in your offices a great deal in the days and weeks and months ahead. My community of Hay River has a long list of issues, concerns, and opportunities. There are many ways to promote and respond to these issues, and my constituents and the members of this House be guaranteed that I will be doing so with all my energy, but in a manner that will not compromise my objectivity and my neutrality in this House. I would like to take this opportunity to publicly thank my family. Politics is not an easy life for families, and the sacrifices each of our families make on a daily basis do not go unnoticed. As members, we could not do our job, the job that we do, without the love and support of our families. I wish to thank my wife, Davida, and our children and grandchildren for the support they constantly provide me. Colleagues, we are beginning our journey here today with many challenges facing us in our great territory, in this great territory of ours. In the various roles us will play as we debate public policy, raise issues of concern for our constituents, lead departments, provide opportunity for public input, and hold government accountable, I ask for your assistance. I ask that you always treat each other with dignity, with respect, and compassion. Protect the integrity of this institution and conduct yourselves within the rules set down by this House. Please be assured that I will work hard to maintain the trust and confidence you have placed in me today. And with that, Mr. Clerk, would you ascertain if the Commissioner of the Northwest Territories, the Honourable Anthony W. J. Whitford, is prepared to enter the chamber and address the Assembly? I would ask you all to rise for the entrance of the Commissioner and to remain standing for our national anthem, which will be performed by Ms. Karen Zyden of Fort Smith.
Order. Thank you for that wonderful rendition of O Canada, our national anthem. Monsieur le Président, Messieurs, Mesdames et les députés, mes amis, it is once again a great pleasure for me and an honor to be here in your presence. And I'm pleased to welcome you all to the first session of the 16th Legislative Assembly of the Northwest Territories. Now, before I begin, I would like to take a moment to offer sincere condolences to the family and to the of the RCMP Constable Christopher Worden on behalf of all peoples across the territories. There is a special bond between the people of the NWT and that at the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. The force had its origin in the Northwest Mounted Police, created in 1873 to police what was then a much larger Northwest Territories. Since that time, members of what is now the RCMP have served the people of the NWT with bravery, dedication, and distinction. While geographic boundaries of the NWT have changed since 1873, the RCMP force's commitment to public service has never wavered. That tradition carried on in Constable Worden, who served most of his career among us. The tragic loss of Constable Worden on October the 6th in Hay River has touched all citizens of the Northwest Territories, and we grieve his loss. Now, I would like to offer my congratulations to the returning members, 3 of you who were acclaimed, and to the newly elected members. I would like to welcome the guests who are here in the public gallery today and those watching these proceedings on television. And I would like to congratulate Paul Delory on his acclamation as Speaker. The members of this Assembly will be well served by the good judgment and experience that you bring to this vital position. I have held this position myself and know that it is sometimes very challenging and also very rewarding and very enjoyable. I wish you the best and have every confidence you will be successful as you return in your role as the Speaker. Each of the members of this Assembly has the responsibility to represent their constituents and to ensure that our government does its best to serve all of the people of the Northwest Territories. We're very fortunate to see today the results of a democratic election to choose our own MLAs. It is only very recently that the residents of the NWT have been able to choose people from among themselves to govern the NWT. This would not have happened even 2 generations ago, because the Government of Canada selected people to sit on the then Council of the Northwest Territories. These federal appointees lived in the South most of the time, and most of them rarely visited the North and could not possibly get to know our people. When the government first moved to the NWT a mere 40 years ago, the people of the NWT did not yet have the opportunity to vote for all of its leaders. It was not until 1975 before Northerners elected all of the members of the NWT Council, but even then, federal appointees were still the majority on the Executive Committee, the body that eventually became today's Cabinet. Elected members did not hold a majority on the Executive until 1979. But it was in 1986 before the elected government leader took over the chair and the representatives chose chosen by the residents in open elections became responsible for governing on behalf of the people of the North. Our style of government, consensus government, is widely admired for its uniquenesses and its workability. Residents of the NWT inherited consensus government in part from our Aboriginal traditions that allowed many people to have a voice in making major decisions, ensuring the government will work cooperatively for the benefit of all NWT peoples. Members of this House will face many challenges during the this upcoming four-year term. My good wishes are extended to all members, and I am confident that all of you will serve the people of the Northwest Territories to the very best of your abilities. Mr. Speaker, before declaring open this first session of the 16th Legislative Assembly, I would like to invite all members and visitors in the gallery to a reception being hosted in the Great Hall when the House adjourns. And I invite everyone to stay for the swearing in of the Executive Council at 4 p.m. this afternoon. And now, as Commissioner of the Northwest Territories, I am proud to declare open the first session of the 16th Legislative Assembly of the Northwest Territories. Thank you. Merci. Koyanami Masicho.
Please be seated. We will proceed to orders of the day. Opening address. Minister's statements. Minister's statements. Members' statements. Member from Mackenzie Delta, Mr. Krutko.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the residents of the Mackenzie Delta for electing me for a fourth term in office. And also I'd like to take this time to recognize the other candidates who also ran in this election, Ms. Mary Clark and Donnie Roberts. And I'd like to encourage them to continue on and pursue public office in other upcoming elections. Mr. Speaker, I would like to also take this time to recognize our community leaders, frontline workers, and community organizations that we all have to work together to improve the lives of our residents. Mr. Speaker, I would like to also take this time to recognize the importance of serving in public office, as I have served in this House for 12 years. I will continue to serve for the next 4 years to do the best job that I can for the residents of the Mackenzie Delta, the Northwest Territories, and to make this the best place we can be. Mr. Speaker, I would also like to take this opportunity to recognize the people in Aklavik, Fort McPherson, and Sigachik for coming out and practicing our public service by way of making elections in our communities. Again, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to take this time to also congratulate yourself, the Speaker, Premier-elect Mr. Rowland, and all the cabinet ministers, and also my colleagues, the other MLAs in the House. But, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to also encourage us to continue on for the best interests of the people in Northwest Territories over the next 4 years, and ensure that we do never forget that we are here to serve the people in Northwest Territories, the residents, and make the Northwest Territories a better place for all of us to live. So with that, Mr. Speaker, Masi Cho.
Thank you, Mr. Krutko. Member statements. The honourable member from Haber South, Ms. Groenewegen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the Saturday, last Thanksgiving weekend, Hay River residents awoke to the news of a tragic loss to our community, the death of one of our respected RCMP members, Constable Christopher Warden. As the details came to be known, Hay River residents grieved and looked for ways to express their sorrow, support, and condolences. Today, I would like to take this opportunity in the House to extend my deepest sympathies to Constable Warden's widow, Jody, and his baby daughter, Alexis, his family, and members of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police across this country, and particularly Constable Warden's colleagues of the G Division. We appreciate so much the dedication and commitment of RCMP members who choose to serve and protect our communities here in the North. This past Monday, a full regimental funeral was held in Constable Warden's hometown of Ottawa, Ontario. I would like to thank our retiring Premier Joe Handley and Justice Minister for attending that funeral on our behalf in Ottawa. I know that the loss of Constable Warden will be remembered, and he will be honoured in our memories for many, many years. A memorial service will also take place in Hay River when members of our community and those who will join us will take the opportunity to pay our respects to the memory of a very, very fine young man, Christopher John Warden. May he rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Groenewegen. Member statements. The honourable member from Deschaux, McLeod.
I'd like to welcome all our visitors and all the constituents that are here from the Deschaux and the community leaders that have joined us. I wanted to take the opportunity to thank the people in Deschaux for giving me the strong showing of support during this past election, this campaign period. I think all members that have been at one time or another will agree that being acclaimed is a lot easier than campaigning. And I certainly appreciate all the people that supported me. I also want to thank all the people from Hay River Reserve, Enterprise, Kakiza, and Fort Providence that have called me over the last few days, offering their support and congratulations. I certainly appreciate it. We had a class come in from Fort Providence to take part in the swearing-in. The adult education class came in. I was very happy to see them, and I was very glad that they came. I also want to thank the members that supported me for being re-elected into cabinet. I want to thank also all the members that put their name forward for a seat in cabinet. We had a very strong a very strong contingent seeking seats in it. Unfortunately, there's only 6 seats, and I think any one of the members that put their name forward could have done a good job. All came with really strong credentials. Mr. Speaker, I also wanted to inform members and people across the North that I continue to have an open door policy. I like to have good, strong communication links with the communities, with the members and people in my riding. And that includes you, Mr. Speaker. I certainly will do everything in my power to support you. And 8 years ago, I ran for the position of MLA. I wanted to see a better quality of life in our communities for our children, and that's a goal I'll continue to work towards. I also want to work harder to improve the lines of communication with the communities I represent, and I intend to go into all the communities in the next little while, starting by Kakiza next week. I really need to have that communication, stay in touch with my constituents. I wanted to also take this opportunity to thank some of the former members that are not coming back. I really appreciated working with Premier Joe Handley Brendan Bell, and Charles Dent, and Bill Braden. I want to wish them luck on their endeavors. And I also wanted to say thank you to my family.
McLeod, your time for member statement has expired.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to request consent to conclude my statement.
Member seeking unanimous consent to conclude his statement. Are there any nays? I heard a nay. Member statements. Honourable member from Nunukput, Mr. Jacobson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first of all, I'd like to mention it's an honour and a privilege for me to be here today as a member of Nunukput. I'd like to thank the people for Nunukput for the overwhelming support I had to let them know that I'll be doing my very best to fight for the issues that are important to all of them and to be the representative in the House. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to congratulate you on you being elected as a Speaker of the House. I'd like to congratulate Premier Rowland on being selected leader of the government over the next 4 years. I've known Mr. Rowland most of my life. He's a hard worker, a great family man, a man of integrity. I look forward to doing my part and working with him on behalf of my constituents in Nunukput and for the people of the Northwest Territories. I'd also like to congratulate all newly appointed captors later on this afternoon. After all what we've been through this past week, the next 4 years should be easy. I will look forward to holding all your collective feet to the fire in my job. Mr. Speaker, I'm here today because a lot of people have encouraged me and helped me along the way. First of all, I'd like to thank my wife, Jenny, who's been behind me all through the campaign trail. I'd like to thank my children. 4 of them are in the gallery today with their mother, and for myself being away for the last 6 weeks. I'd also like to thank my mom, Georgina, who's here today. She also worked really hard on the campaign care of most important issues, making sure I was eating well. There are many more residents and the community leaders and the youth who are a part of my team. I continue to guide my job as the MLA and take the names too many names to mention, who are there to take the opportunity to thank them all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobson. Member statements. The Honourable member from Tabacha, Mr. Miltenberger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to all the folks that are here today and those that are watching on TV. I as well would just like to take a few brief seconds to thank the constituents of Tabacha, the many that supported me in the election, many that worked for me in my campaign, to Denise Uhas, who was my official agent for the 4th time, the best in the business, and to my family, some of which are here as well in the gallery today. I'm very grateful for this honor of a 4th mandate to come back to this House of the people, the House that consensus government built. And I'd like to thank my colleagues and congratulate them as well on their either election or re-election. And I must say that I am truly grateful that the campaign now is finally over and that after today we'll all be able to get down to work for the people of the Northwest Territories. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miltenberger. Member statements. The Honourable member from Inuvik Twin Lakes, Mr. McLeod.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, running for public office is not an easy thing to do, and it's something that I'm sure all of you in here took a great deal of thought putting into it. And I think you find that you talk to most people that run for public office, it's not as hard as them as it is on their family. And with that, I have to thank my wife, Judy, for continued support. I have to thank the people that worked hard on my campaign. 3 years ago, I ran in a by-election, and I had a few people jump on board and supported me throughout the by-election, and more so in this recent election that we just went through. And I have to admire their loyalty and their belief in me. And I don't intend to let them down, Mr. Speaker. I will be down here. I've told the people in Nuvik that I will be down here pounding the table, bringing their issues forward, and it's a personal sacrifice that we and our families make, and it's a sacrifice in more ways than one, to be on this side, pounding the table, making sure our issues are brought to the forefront. I want to congratulate the Speaker on your selection, and I'm sure today, being first day of session, you're going to cut us a little slack. And I'd also like to congratulate Mr. Rowland on his election as Premier, and the Cabinet Ministers. I'd like to congratulate you on your appointment to Cabinet later on this afternoon. My social program colleagues, I'll be holding the fort on this side of the House for you. And you know, this is a big day, Mr. Speaker, for the members of Cabinet. They're all being sworn in later on today. So I thought it was best that we just do the thank you today. But after today, you will be sworn in. And starting tomorrow, we're going to be all over you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. McLeod. Member statements. The honourable member from the Satu, Mr. Yakalai.
Mr. Speaker, I want to first of all, my family back in Toledo, people and my family members in the Satu region for supporting me. Mr. Speaker, without them, we say that family is so important to our lives. More so in the job that we do today as MLAs, as ministers, as members of the Legislative Assembly, that my family members are there at the end of the day. I want to also thank my friends and thank my Ready campaign team, which we had a break from the campaign, thanks to the gift of the Satu people for claiming me as a representative in this assembly. I really say it's a gift, and I really want to thank the elders who spoke for me in my term as an MLA. And thank the people from the bottom of my heart to give an opportunity at that time to take some time, because of this work that we do. A lot of time is spent away from our family. Really have the opportunity to go into the bush and spend some time with my family, take my little boy and my wife and go in the mountains and do some hunting up there for them. And I really appreciated that as a gift from my people in the Satu region. Mr. Speaker, I said the elders are the key to my representing the people in the Satu. And the one person that I really, really regretted yesterday in terms of the work that went on yesterday was my mother. I wanted to really see her here and to physically to make that phone call and tell her that of all her hard work and her sacrifice she did when we were young, that she could be thanked from the bottom of my heart. I said a prayer last night, and I thanked Mom, wherever you are, for guiding me and being perseverance in her discipline to us in terms of getting the best in life. And we've got to, Mr. Speaker, for that I want to say to all the young people in the Satu region, people in the Northwest Territories, dream big, dream the dream that you want to be in life, because it could happen with hard work, with education, hard, good values to live by. I want to say that, Mr. Speaker. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Yakalai. Member statements. The honourable member from Kamloops, Mr. Ramsey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and other visitors that we have here in the gallery with us today. I'd like to begin my statement today by congratulating you, Mr. Delory, on once again becoming the Speaker of our Legislative Assembly. I have a great deal of respect and admiration for you, Mr. Speaker, and I wish you well in your role. To our new Premier, Mr. Rowland, I offer my congratulations. In addition to our new Premier, I'd also like to congratulate our new Cabinet, Mr. Lafferty, Kalaya, Mr. Bob McLeod, Mr. Michael McLeod, Mr. Miltonberger, and Ms. Lee. Good luck and best wishes on your selection to our Executive Council. I want to thank the constituents of Cam Lake for re-electing me to a second term in office. I will be forever grateful to you for giving me the honor and the privilege to again represent you and your families in this Legislative Assembly. I'd also like to thank my opponent, Mr. Brad Engie, for challenging me in the riding of Cam Lake, and I feel it's always important to earn a job. And Mr. Speaker, with 81% of the vote, I come into this Assembly in my role as MLA for Cam Lake with a tremendous endorsement from my constituents. I would also like to thank my family, my wife Amanda, for being the strong person that she is, my mother and father, Frank and Peggy, for coming from New Brunswick to spend the last week of the election campaign with me, and also my mother and father-in-law, Kathy or Fabian, and my official agent, Mr. Brad Anstey, and all of my campaign supporters and contributors. Mr. Speaker, as my family and supporters from across the territory know, I was hoping to be selected to Cabinet yesterday during the Territorial Leadership Committee. And Mr. Speaker, I'd equate the TLC process that we have here to something akin to Survivor. Sometimes in life and politics, things are not always as they might appear, and yesterday was a good example of that for me. I just want to say again to my supporters and those of you who know who Dave Ramsey is, that I'm not going to give up, I won't back down, and I won't go away. I will continue to pursue the interests of my constituents and the residents of this territory to the best of my ability as a regular member of this Legislative Assembly. And Mr. Speaker, it's a role that I relish, and I certainly am looking forward to. Masi.
Thank you, Mr. Ramsey. Member statements. The honourable member from Willowday, Mr. Bromley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to begin with congratulations to you, Mr. Speaker, and to our new Premier and Cabinet, about to be, for their selections to these key leadership positions. I know that these responsibilities are not lightly earned, and it is clear that they bring many skills, you bring many skills, and much experience and knowledge to these jobs. I'm highly honored to be representing and working on behalf of the people and interests of Willowday and the Northwest Territories. I thank the voters and have pledged my dedication to them. I express appreciation to all those who contributed to the Willowday election campaign by putting their names forward to run for election. I know much better now how much of a contribution to our society and our democracy this is. I thank my family, in particular my wife Marianne, who kept me healthy and sane, as she promised she would. To my mother, Barb Bromley, who participated in many ways. To my sister, Maxine Avery, my brother, Chris Bromley, and his wife, Cleo, and all the other members of my family, my nephews and nieces and brothers and so on, all of whom reside in Willowday. Mr. Speaker, I'm humbled by the amazing support, skills, time, and contributions I received from my campaign team. I recognize that they gave up considerable from family lives, considerable time from family and personal lives, from our fall harvesting season, and time from their working lives for my campaign. Willowday has an incredible diversity of cultures. I would particularly like to thank my translators, Mary Rose Sunberg, Mary Rose Dryneck, Bernadette Martin, France Benoit, Baptiste Foisy, and Louis Azzolini. Through their good work, my Willowday campaign served to build community and relationships using local skills and local resources. Many local businesses participated. Even our buttons were manufactured by a budding young entrepreneur in Willowday. Events in the riding featured local food like whitefish and local entertainment by skilled musicians. This was a wee demonstration of sustainable living. In closing, I'm looking very much forward to working with all members of this House. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bromley. Member statements. The honourable member from Nahende, Mr. Medikosh.
Mr. Speaker, dene kearisia. Se masi sende nahinde nehirusi ineda. Chusea kitete inet. Candizo gotli qua kawadik anteda. Dene close it's unendi. Agence masi nedisi. Gotsan dene onki sea denek egon des et anendi. Et John Gallery the da idi shu masi nedisi in that. Duguts mulla aresia. Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud to be the choice for my riding Nahinde once again, and I wish to thank my constituents for their confidence and giving me the honor and privilege of serving once again. There are many roles that we can serve in our assembly, but above all, we serve our constituents to make a difference to their lives and to make a difference to our communities. And before I really get to work, Speaker, I want to use this time to be grateful, though. I'd like to, first of all, thank my campaign team and campaign manager back home in Fort Simpson, and a big thanks to Mr. Sean Welly. I also thank my children and my family and supporters for their help, and as well to the Nahanni Inn gang there, Mr. Speaker, that provided many hours of strategy and planning advice. And at the same time, I do wish to thank the rest of the candidates, the MLA candidates that ran with me, Mr. Bob Hanna, Mr. Arnold Hope, and as well as Ms. Keena Norwegian. It provided an opportunity for me to get another mandate, and I'm very happy, a resounding mandate. And without that opportunity to have the people participate in our great democratic process, I'm really grateful for that, Mr. Speaker. And as well as too, I along with many colleagues here, did stand my name forward to be a minister once again in our government, and that did not happen. But I'm very happy just to be here and serve and represent the people once again, Mr. Speaker. Masicho.
Thank you, Mr. Melikosh. Member statements. The honourable member from Great Slave, Mr. Abernathy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks for everybody in the gallery for being here today. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the residents of the Great Slave Riding for their confidence in me. One of my goals, both during and prior to the campaign, was to listen to the people of the Great Slave Riding and the North to learn what issues are important to them. I am now excited to move forward and work with the members of this House on these very important issues and in the best interest of all people of the Northwest Territories. I'd also like to thank the people who helped me with my campaign for MLA. In particular, Jackie McKinnon, Trudy Samuel, my sister Susan Abernathy, my parents Dick and Loretta Abernathy, Bernie Bauhaus, who was my official agent, and last but not least, Catherine Carrier. I'd also like to acknowledge the other candidates of the Great Slave Riding, Mr. Mark Bogan, Chris Hunt, Beaton McKenzie, and Doug Ritchie. They are all very passionate about the NWT, and I hope that they continue to be involved in both the community and the North. In closing, I want to send a message to the new Premier, to the ministers, to the Speaker, and to all members of the Legislative Assembly. I'm really looking forward to getting to work with all of you, and I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and get to work, knowing full well that getting elected was getting. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Abernathy. Member statements. The honourable member from Yellowknife South, Mr. McLeod.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I too congratulate you on your acclamation as Speaker. I also congratulate all the new and returning members. I congratulate Premier-elect Rowland and the other members of Cabinet. I thank the members who voted for me. I am very honored to be here in the Legislative Assembly as the elected representative for Yellowknife South. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to my constituents who put their trust in me. I especially want to thank my wife, Melody, my son, Warren, and his wife, Shannon, and my two wonderful grandsons, Carter, for their unconditional love and support. To my friends and all the hardworking volunteers, supporters, and advisors who put a lot of effort into my campaign, thank you for your hard work and for believing in me. I especially want to thank my campaign manager, Daryl Bonnet, and official agent Sue Heron-Herbert. I also express gratitude for the unsuccessful candidates who had the courage and strength to pursue a seat of this riding. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the constituents of Yellowknife South, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Brendan Bell for 2 terms of service as elected MLA. I also thank the Legislative Assembly team for welcoming us and making us feel at home. And thanks again to the constituents of Yellowknife South. I will serve you to the best of my abilities. Thank you.
Mr. MacLeod. Member statements. The Honourable Member from Yellowknife Centre, Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first I'd like to say thank you to Yellowknife Centre. It's a privilege and an honour to return to the riding as their representative. It was an honour enough to be elected once, but twice is quite a privilege, Mr. Speakers. You know yourself. They've given me a mandate, and I appreciate all the support given to me. To the volunteers out there, it was quite inspiring to see how many we had come forward. I want to thank them especially because they gave up, as Mr. Romley had pointed out, they give up personal time, family time, sometimes even meal time to make sure that they can get your work and your issues out there. So to them, I say a special thank you. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to start, although I have a lot of names I'd like to thank, and at the risk of missing a few, I do want to mention a number of special names that have helped considerably in my campaign. First, to my wife, Susan. Without her blessing, there would have been no campaign. My 2 sons, McKinley and Hudson, sometimes seeing me meant they had to come down to the campaign office and spend time with me there. To my parents, Terry and Kim, you know, my dad put a lot of hours in the evening to make sure the office was open in case anybody came by, and there were, and it was pretty exciting. They were huge supporters. To very special people I wanted to highlight quickly, Mr. Ed Jeske, Adji Shaw, Jim Cheney, Catherine Youngblood, Zell McCormick, thank you for your advice, your time, your ear. To Cito Domingo, Chris Domingo. Mr. Domingo, thank you for going through my stuff. And to his wife, Chris Domingo, thank you. She often provided us cupcakes. It was quite nice. To Ruben Severio, Larry and Hermie Pineda, Harley Crow, Helen Cronstel, your friendship is touching and always be appreciated. To John and Deb Simpson, your advice and encouragement was always wonderful. To Tina and Willie Rivera, Tim and Minda Hernandez, thank you for your friendship. Leanne and Luce at the field store, thank you for making sure there were spring rolls always there for us. To Daryl and Cindy Delaney, Jeff Corradetti, and Cody Summerfield and Kristen Jenkins, thank you very much for your hard work. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to close by saying that thank you to the other 3 candidates in the riding. It was a spirited campaign, and as mentioned, like Mr. Ramsey had pointed out, it's good to give the voters a choice. It was an excellent campaign, and I want to thank them for the spirited opportunity. But to close with one comment, I'd like to thank everyone for their help. I will continue to work as hard as possible. I will continue to work as hard as ever to be known as a constituent MLA who works for everyone's needs. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your blessings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Member statements. The Honourable Member from Trinidad, Mr. Bolio.
Merci, Mr. Speaker. Duitse merci de sinhani yare. Atsedu sezini on alyut adini kwanchu klutsal ketchu ansnet banahi ya. Adu sapali kesid ek eliadila. Adu sildu alyut ansnet banastanat liada. I'd also like to thank all the people in both communities that supported me. In Fort Resolution, we had a great team. My campaign manager was Warren DeLorme. Today, I still work with Warren and his wife, Velma. I had a tremendous amount of support in Fort Resolution, as over 240 of the 290 people that went out to vote in Resolution voted for me. The support I received after being away from the community for so long shows that once you're from Fort Resolution, you're always from Fort Resolution. On a sad note, 5 people either from Fort Resolution or a written Fort Resolution passed away during the 2 months that I was campaigning in Fort Resolution in Clutsalke. Their names are Jane Hollins, Elsie Calumet, Gabe Mandeville, George Sayin, and Rick Green. I look forward to working with both Tlutsalke and Fort Resolution over the next 4 years. I'll be traveling into Fort Resolution next week to host a feast, and I will be doing the same in Tlutsalke as soon as I can make arrangements. My number one priority will continue to be to improve the lives of the youth in Fort Resolution and Tlutsalke. And I'd also like to thank my family for all their support and understanding during the campaign. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bolio. Member statements. The honourable member from Mophie, Mr. Jackson. Mr. Lafferty.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, did zenge ta zande ke zinde onde. Ka xian ta hote la da mu zai kwe ma si jin onde. Xian ta se tian zang ke ma si ge onde. Se zai ke se za se tie gen li. Se tian se za da gen di ta de gen li. Clean chun ne ge jin kong. Se za da gen dia sa ke te so lia zong ga we down de. Na za yi o da ma si zai dia da na chang de. Di la ke ne zai de da la na cha gu na kwe on de. Go kong zai kwe la na ho da hon tie zai ge zai de. Da gi ga ge zai de zai na go gen la na zong. Da ga xian ma si jin won de yi zong ke ga. Di ga de Mr. Speaker, ni hi da ni zin ne o na ge te so liao de ma si ne jin ho de. Ai zong premier hi. Premier Roland. 这地方大电视年话，大我真前一马戏我真放的，还从来过这 cabinet minister 在跟里，我这电视给你跟拉的家子，还一马戏给放的，还从拉的木给过hin，还有这 members 在这里，上次下了这的，因到这的，还真放的这些，还从阿姨我的想到马戏的放的一种个，阿姨从老王的。 从当年在大洋的，好像我给个真的的，一线公线hin。当年那是下了在大的，还真忘的。当年那是个线，因到在的啊，还是我个家子来我在这还真忘的。因地当年大家我个线上我，而且20年的，我好地了你了嘞。还有的30个在多的，那是个线还完了呢，给去的，还有他妈事情忘的。 Mr. Speaker, I'd just like to first thank my wife, Diane, my 5 beautiful children, Jade, Cheyenne, Dene, and Ty, for supporting me all these years as their father, their husband, and also my Clinton constituents, family members, who voted me for another term. I'd just like to thank you, Mr. Speaker, and also thank you to the Premier, Cabinet, the members. And if we can have a positive working relations, as I highlighted in my summary as a Clinton language, I'm looking forward to working with all of you here. Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Lafferty. Member statements. The honourable member from Frame Lake, Ms. Beedrow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to take this opportunity as well to thank the constituents of Frame Lake who voted for me and put me into this particular office. I'd also like to give thanks to the other candidates, Jeff Grunewagen and Mr. Chris Johnston, who ran against me in opposition. As has been stated, they gave up much for the weeks or for the months of August and September in order to run for election. I need to thank as well all those who assisted me with my campaign coordinator, my official agent, all the volunteers who assisted with the campaign, and in particular my team of advisors. I have to give special note to an import, a dear friend of mine who came north for 1 month to assist me with the campaign and proved to be absolutely invaluable, and without Mark Hall, I doubt if I would have been successful. Last but not least, I need to thank my family. In the north, me being an import, I am from away, but not from Newfoundland. And in the north, your friends tend to become your family. And I need to thank those of my northern family who were totally supportive of me in my campaign. The election results in Frame Lake were more than I'd hoped for, and I feel very honored to have such confidence shown in me. I need to extend, at the risk of being repetitive, I need to extend congratulations to you, Mr. Speaker, to the Premier and to the members of the Executive Council who have been recently elected, and I look forward to working with all of you for the betterment of the Northwest Territories. On the occasion of the opening of this 16th Legislative Assembly, it's such a privilege for me to be here. The Premier mentioned yesterday that it's a humbling experience, and I agree totally. This wonderful institution and this building, as I enter it daily, I still am in awe. And I find it very hard to believe that when I walk in here, I'm walking to work, I am coming to my office. This is a new challenge for me. I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to it. I look at the members assembled in this House and I see great opportunity. I can do good. I think that we can achieve results. And I think if we work together, it will be for the betterment of the NWT and all of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bizarro. Member statements. The honourable member from Range Lake, Ms. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to take also a few minutes to say a few thanks. I'd like to thank the constituents of Range Lake for sending me back to the legislature for the third time with another strong mandate. I want them to know that I will continue to work hard to be their voice and to represent their issues and concerns in this House. It's such a great honor and privilege to serve them as a member. This is a time in my life I'm certain that I'll cherish for the rest of my life. Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to express my appreciation to the members of this House for giving me their confidence and trust to serve them and the people of the territories in the Executive Council. I pledge to them that I will continue to work hard and work hard with them to get the job done for the people of the Northwest Territories. As many members have stated already, none of us could be here without our family and supporters. I'd like to thank all of them for their support. In particular, I'd like to recognize my sister, Kathy Kim, who left 20 years ago, but came back for 2 weeks to help me out and to find out what it is that I was all mad about. I don't think I convinced her to run for office, but I want to thank her. I want to also recognize my former assistant, who was my campaign manager, Kathy Olson, who's watching us through web camera, I understand, and I'd like to recognize my official agent, Abe Thiel, and I look forward to working with you for the next 4 years. I think we could get a lot of work done together. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Member statements. The honourable member, Nunavik-Boot Lake, Mr. Rowland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I too would like to, along with the members of this Assembly, congratulate you and look forward to working with you as a Speaker of the 16th Legislative Assembly. And as well for the members for your support in putting me into this position. It's going to take the work of all of us to make the lives better of the people of the Northwest Territories. And we're going to face many challenges, but I believe in working together we can build and strengthen this place we call home, the Northwest Territories. Mr. Speaker, we heard about the sacrifice members make in coming into this forum and working around this office, as stated, and the challenges that our families will face as we take and hold office in this Assembly. Mr. Speaker, I found in the other times as I put my name forward for Inuvik and then Inuvik-Boot Lake, I always talked with my family and my wife, first get her permission to put my name forward, and she's always supported me and realized of the sacrifice that we would make together as a family. So I have to thank her for agreeing to let me run for the 16th Legislative Assembly. As well, my children, a number of them were born before I became a member, and the two of the younger children have only known me to be a member of the Legislative Assembly. So to them, it's old business, old hat, and we'll get back down to business. They just ask if I can still be a minister. And I'm honored, Mr. Speaker, the fact that the people of Inuvik-Boot Lake have sent me back down to represent them as a member of the 16th Legislative Assembly through the acclamation that they returned me back by. So I'm honored they have once again supported me in that manner. The second time is my second time as a member of the Legislative Assembly, and again I want to express my sincere gratitude for the people of Inuvik-Boot Lake and the community of Inuvik for supporting me once again in the manner they did. And I will do my best to represent them, along with my colleague, Mr. Robert MacLeod, to ensure that we have a fair representation in the Legislative Assembly. And I have to also thank my colleague from Inuvik Twin Lakes, Mr. Robert MacLeod, for his support and encouragement for stepping forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rowland. Member statements. Recognition of visitors in the gallery. I'd like to start by recognizing three special people in the gallery today for me. A constituent of mine, Donna O'Brien, who was my campaign manager in 2003. Also, Bobby Hamilton, who was my campaign manager for this election. And my wife, Davida. Thank you for being here. You've been here for a few days now, and I really appreciated your support and for being here. Welcome to the Legislative Assembly. Recognition of visitors in the gallery. Honourable Member from Yellowknife Centre, Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to recognize Mr. Ed Jeske, Rosa Parka, Vivian Squires in the gallery, as well as I did notice coming in that Phyla Fighton, Don Cooper, who's a Deputy Minister of Justice, Justice Vertes, and Brad Inge, all constituents of mine. I'd like to say welcome to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Recognition of visitors in the gallery. Honourable Member from Trinidad, Mr. Bolio.
Thank you, Mr. I'd like to recognize some constituents of mine and family. Mr. and Mrs. Angus and Dorothy Bolio, Mr. and Mrs. Ellen and Emrys Cardinal, Mr. Robert Sayin, and Mr. Philip Pepe Bolio.
Thank you, Mr. Bolio. Recognition of visitors in the gallery. The honourable member from Cam Lake, Mr. Ramsey. Did you have your hands up? No? Honourable member from Inuvik Twin Lakes, Mr. MacLeod.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to recognize my wife, Judy, and my sister-in-law, Charlotte. And I'd also like to recognize William Greenland and Sandra Ipana. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. MacLeod. Recognition of visitors in the gallery. The honourable member from Nunukput, Mr. Jacobson.
Just like to recognize my wife Jenny, my mother Georgina, my son Matthew, and my son Mitchell. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobson. Recognition of visitors in the gallery. Honourable member from Great Slave, Mr. Abernathy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to recognize my parents, Dick and Loretta Abernathy, as well as a good family friend, Ian Gilchrist, and an individual who helped me on my campaign, Catherine Carey. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Abernathy. Recognition of visitors in the gallery. Honourable member from Decho, Mr. MacLeod.
Mr. Speaker, my family couldn't join us today, so I'm especially pleased to see some members from my hometown, Mr. Wayne Vendel, Pascaline Thurbert, Saburn, Teresa Bonnet-Rouge, Diane Gargan, and a former constituent, Albert Canadian, who's here with us today. Welcome to all of them.
Thank you, Mr. MacLeod. Recognition of visitors in the gallery. Honourable member from the Satu, Mr. Yakalai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to recognize my loving wife and my little boy Chase. Also, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to recognize a huge delegation from the Satu region, Elder Morris Mendo, Grand Chief Frank Andrew, Elder David Ishinelli, young drummer Ricky Andrew, Chief from Delaunay Raymond Tucho, Mrs. Aya, Mrs. McKenzo, Mrs. Tanaton, Mrs. Kenny. I want to recognize all of the people also who are in this house today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Yakalaya. Recognition of visitors in the gallery. Honourable member from Mofi, Mr. Lafferty.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I too would like to recognize two of my constituents, Merdell Flunky and Joyce Bishop, who are here part of the language immersion workshop today. Merci. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Lafferty. Recognition of visitors in the gallery. Honourable member from Frame Lake, Ms. Beazerl.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to recognize a couple of distinguished guests we have with us today. The President of the NWT Association of Communities and the Executive Director, Mr. Gord Van Tighem, and Ms. Yvette Gonzalez. I'd like to also recognize the President of the NWT Teachers Association and Executive Director, Ms. Amanda Mallon, and Mr. Dave Roebuck. I hope I remembered rightly. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Beazerl. Recognition of visitors in the gallery. Honourable member from Haverford South, Ms. Grunewald.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, although he is constituent, I would like to recognize today's Chief Superintendent Tom Middleton from G Division and thank him very much for his support to our community.
Thank you, Ms. Grunewagen. Recognition of visitors in the gallery. Honourable member from Yellowknife South, Mr. Balmacleod.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to recognize Mr. Ed Jeske, a longtime friend of mine, Mayor Gord Van Tighem, Yvette Bungay, Executive Director, Yvette Gonzalez, sorry, a longtime friend of mine, Jerry Cheesy, Jesse Campbell, all of my people from Fort Providence that are here, and from my previous life, all of my Deputy Minister colleagues that are sitting up there. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mr. McLeod. Recognition of visitors in the gallery. Honourable member from Range Lake, Ms. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I realize there's lots of people there, and it's good to see them all. I just want to recognize two people, Mr. Bern Richards and Lydia Bardak, who's very involved in the community issues, and especially on homelessness and addiction issues in Yellowknife. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Recognition of visitors in the gallery. Honourable member from the Henday, Mr. Menikosh.
Mr. Speaker, do a me gallery kente damon show at Mezila Tlitli Quagots Andy Norwegian, Gods Gladys Norwegian, Masicho.
Thank you, Mr. Menikosh. Recognition of visitors in the gallery. Honourable member from Inuvik, Boot Lake, Mr. Rowland.
Though not from Inuvik, I want to recognize Mr. Todd Parsons, the president of the UNW.
The RCP, not the general.
Thank you, Mr. Rowland. Recognition of visitors in the gallery. Honourable member from Willowday, Mr. Bromley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, I can't see a lot of the folks behind me, but I know there must be a lot of folks from Willowday there. There is also all the other people that are attending today, and I'd like to express my appreciation and recognition of them participating in this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bromley. Recognition of visitors in the gallery. I'd also like to make special notice of General Chris Whitecross, Commander, Joint Task Force North, with us today. Welcome to the Legislative Assembly. Also, if we've missed anyone in the gallery today, welcome to the Legislative Assembly. It's always nice to have an audience in here, and hopefully we'll have this crowd every day that we have session in here. Orders of the day, acknowledgements, oral questions, written questions, petitions, reports of standing and special committees, tabling of documents. I wish to table the report of the Conflict of Interest Commissioner on the complaint respecting MLA Bobby Villeneuve dated September 14, 2007, pursuant to Section 102 of the Legislative Assembly Executive Council Act. Also pursuant to Section 14 of the Indemnities, Allowances, and Expenses Regulations of the Legislative Assembly and Executive Council Act, I hereby table the statutory declaration of residence for Mr. Norman Yakalaya, member for Satu, dated August 24, 2007. Tabling of documents. Notice of motion. I'm a member from Tabatcha, Mr. Miltenberger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I give notice that on Monday, October 22nd, 2007, I will move the following motion. Now therefore I move, seconded by the Honourable Member for Sahtu, that the member for Inuvik Boot Lake, the Honourable Floyd Rowland, is hereby chosen to be Premier and a member of the Executive Council of the Northwest Territories. And Mr. Speaker, at the appropriate time, I will be seeking unanimous consent to deal with this motion today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Milton. Notice of motion. The Honourable Member from Cam Lake, Mr. Ramsey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I give notice that on Monday, October 22nd, 2007, I will move the following motion. Now therefore I move, seconded by the Honourable Member for Hay River South, that this Assembly recommends to the Commissioner of the Northwest Territories that the following members be appointed to the Executive Council. Mr. Jackson Lafferty, the member for Montfouet, Ms. Sandy Lee, the member for Range Lake, Mr. Bob McLeod, the member for Yellowknife South, Mr. Michael McLeod, the member for Decho, Mr. J. Michael Miltenberger, the member for Tabatcha, and Mr. Norman Yakalaya, the member for Sahtu. And Mr. Speaker, at the appropriate time, I will be seeking unanimous consent to deal with this motion today.
Thank you, Mr. Ramsey. Notice of motion. The Honourable Member from Nahende, Mr. Medikosh.
Mr. Speaker, appointments to the Standing Committee on Accountability and Oversight. Whereas Rule 85 requires that a member be appointed to the Standing Committee on Accountability and Oversight. Now, therefore, I moved, seconded by the Honourable Member of Great Slave, that the following members be appointed to the Standing Committee.
I'm just giving notice there. Oh.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Speaker, I stand corrected. Mr. Speaker, I give notice that on Monday, October 22nd, 2007, I will move the following motion. Now, therefore, I move, seconded by the Honourable Member for Great Slave, that the following members be appointed to the Standing Committee on Accountability and Oversight. Mr. Glenn Abernathy, the member for Great Slave, Mr. Tom Bolio, the member for Tunada, Ms. Wendy Bissaro, the member for Frame Lake, Mr. Bob Bromley, the member for Welladay, Mrs. Jane Grunwagon, the member for Hay River South, Mr. Robert Hawkins, the member for Yellowknife Centre, Mr. Jackie Jacobson, the member for Nunakput, Mr. David Krutko, the member for Mackenzie Delta, Mr. Robert C. McLeod, the member for Inuvik Twin Lakes, Mr. Kevin Minikosh, the member for Nahende, and Mr. David Ramsey, the member for Cam Lake. And, Mr. Speaker, at the appropriate time, I will be seeking unanimous consent to deal with this motion today.
Thank you, Mr. Medikosh. Notice of motion. Notice of motion for the first reading of bills. Notice of motion for the first reading of bills. Motions. A member from Tabatcha, Mr. Miltenberger.
Mr. Speaker, I seek unanimous consent to deal with the motion of earlier today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miltenberger. Mr. Miltenberger is seeking unanimous consent to deal with the motion he gave notice of earlier today. Are there any nays? There are no nays. You may proceed with your motion, Mr. Miltenberger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It gives me great pleasure to make the following motion. Whereas subsection 61(1) of the Legislative Assembly and Executive Council Act requires that there shall be an Executive Council of the Northwest Territories, and whereas the Executive Council shall be comprised of a Premier chosen by this Legislative Assembly and persons appointed by the Commissioner on the recommendation of this Legislative Assembly, now therefore I move, seconded by the Honourable Member for Sahtu, that the member for Inuvik Boot Lake, the Honourable Floyd Rowland, is hereby chosen to be Premier and a member of the Executive Council of the Northwest Territories. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Miltenberger. Motion is being circulated. Motion is on the floor. Motion is in order. To the motion. Question is being called. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. Motions. The honourable member from Cam Lake, Mr. Ramsey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I seek unanimous consent to deal with the motion I gave notice of earlier today.
Members seeking unanimous consent to deal with the motion he gave notice of earlier today. Are there any nays? There are no nays. You may proceed with your motion, Mr. Ramsey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Whereas Section 61, Brackets 1 of the Legislative and Executive Council Act requires that there shall be an Executive Council of the Northwest Territories, and whereas members of the Executive Council are appointed by the Commissioner on the recommendation of the Legislative Assembly, now therefore I move, seconded by the Honourable Member for Hay River South, that this Assembly recommends to the Commissioner of the Northwest Territories that the following members be appointed to the Executive Council: Mr. Jackson Lafferty, the member for Montfouet; Ms. Sandy Lee, the member for Range Lake; Mr. Bob McLeod, the member for Yellowknife South; Mr. Michael McLeod, the member for Decho; Mr. J. Michael Miltenberger, the member for Tebacha; and Mr. Norman Yakalaya, the member for Sahtu.
Thank you, Mr. Ramsey. Motion is being circulated. Motion's on the floor. Motion's in order. To the motion. Question. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. Motions. The honourable member from Nahende, Mr. Medikosh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Whereas Rule 85 requires that members be appointed to the Standing Committee on Accountability and Oversight, and now, therefore, I move, seconded by the Honourable Member for Great Slave, that the following members be appointed to the Standing Committee on Accountability and Oversight.
Last page. Last page first.
Yeah.
Yes, seeking unanimous consent to deal with it.
Mr. Speaker, I did get rusty. Mr. Speaker, I unanimous consent to deal with the motion I gave notice of earlier today.
Thank you, Mr. Medikosh. Members seeking unanimous consent to deal with the motion he gave notice of earlier today. Are there any nays? There are no nays. You may proceed with your motion, Mr. Medikosh.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Thank you, colleagues. Whereas Rule 85 requires that the members be appointed to the Standing Committee on Accountability and Oversight, now, therefore, I move, seconded by the Honourable Member for Great Slave, that the following members be appointed to the Standing Committee on Accountability and Oversight: Mr. Glenn Abernathy, the member for Great Slave; Mr. Tom Beaulieu, the member for Tunada; Ms. Wendy Bassaro, the member for Frame Lake; Mr. Bob Bromley, the member for Welladay; Mrs. Jane Groenwegen, the member for Hay River South; Mr. Robert Hawkins, the member for Yellowknife Centre; Mr. Jackie Jacobson, the member for Nunakput; Mr. David Krutko, the member for Mackenzie Delta; Mr. Robert C. McLeod, the member for Inuvik Twin Lakes; Mr. Kevin Minikosh, the member for Nahende; and Mr. David Ramsey, the member for Cam Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Medikosh. Motion is on the floor. Motion is in order. The motion. Question being called. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion is carried. Motions. Motions. First reading of bills. First reading of bills. Second reading of bills. Second reading of bills. Mr. Clerk, orders of the day.
Orders of the day for Friday, October 19th, 2007, 10 a.m. Prayer, Minister Statements, Member Statements, returns to oral questions, recognition of visitor, acknowledgements, oral questions, returns to written questions, replies to the opening address, petitions, reports of standing and special committees, reports of committees on the review of bills, tabling of documents, notices of motion for first reading of bills, motions, first reading of bills, second reading of bills, consideration in committee of the whole of bills and other matters, report of committee of the whole, third reading of bills, orders of the day.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Accordingly, this House stands adjourned until Friday, October 19, 2007, 10 a.m.
Order.
Lead them on stage.
Yeah.